Call the order of the Planning Commission for February 4th, 2026. Can I have everybody stand and pledge allegiance, please? To the flag of the United States of America. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up, we're going to get an approval of the meeting agenda and approval of the meeting minutes for January 7th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
This is Kim. I'd like to make a motion for approval of the agenda and approval of the meeting minutes for January 7th, 2026.
This is Mike, second.
Carrie, aye.
Kim, aye.
Mike, aye.
Andy, aye.
Rob and I. Okay, with that, we're going to move right into the public open forum. If there's somebody who would like to come up and speak tonight about anything that's not on the current agenda, we'd invite you to do so. Anybody online would like to do so, please speak up as well. Anybody? Okay, we're going to move on then. Public open forum is closed. First thing on our hearings is 6A public hearing, Holiday Station Store, CUPA at 9444 Lake Drive Northeast.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we take
yes,
out of order?
I'm sorry, we're going to go out of order here in a second. And we're going to go to number 9 on our agenda, and that's the planner's report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I am not Eleanor, so you'll have to excuse the difference in your packet and how things look and maybe my delivery, but it should make a little sense. But I wanted to bring this back to you before we get into any of the public hearings or decisions tonight. During the January 7th, 2026 Planning Commission, I believe City Administrator Davis presented information that the public hearing policy was scheduled for a revisitation by the City Council. At its January 28th, 2026 City Council meeting, the Council discussed and reviewed Policy 2401 and approved 2601, granting the Planning Commission the authority to not require an additional 2-week waiting period with a recommendation justifying the action. So my request would be that you take a look at Policy 2601, specifically the second page, which is labeled page 70 of your packet. Under exceptions, letter C was added and approved. The waiting period may also be waived either upon a motion of the Planning Commission or upon the recommendation of staff with the concurrence of the Planning Commission for those items that upon inspection and review do not require an additional 2 weeks and can be referred directly to the City Council. So you are granted the authority for some of these items that are sort of no-brainers to go ahead and forward them through without the 2-week waiting period. So I will try and provide some support and guidance on items as we go if I feel like there's more questions than answers or that they're not very black and white. But if you guys feel also that there are items that are no-brainers, feel free to, in your motion, state that you don't need more time, or it's a simple amendment or something along those lines, so we can have that justification when it moves off to council. So thank you for taking that out of order.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, now we are going to open the public hearing for the Holiday Station Store, CUPA at 9444 Lake Drive Northeast. And Aaron, would you read the notices published in the Forest Lake Times, please?
Yeah, let me find it.
For the Holiday Station Stores.
Here.
While he's looking that up, if I could have the representatives for Holiday come up to the front table here.
There's a couple online.
Absolutely. All right, I have it when you're ready. It says that notice is hereby given that the public hearing will be held by the City of Columbus Planning Commission on Wednesday, February 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as parties may be heard. The hearing will be conducted in person and by interactive video technology at the Columbus City Hall location 16319 Kettle River Boulevard, Columbus, Minnesota, to consider a request to amend the existing conditional use permit to add a car wash to the facility located at 9444 Lake Drive Northeast. Members of the public are interested in attending in person, monitoring the meeting, or wanting more information should contact City Hall or visit the city website. The hearing shall continue until all evidence and testimony has been received.
Thank you, Aaron. All right. I don't know who's online with me, who's part of this, but your name is?
I'm Kasner.
You're Kasner?
Yep.
All right. If I could have you give us a little rundown of what is going to be going on. I need your name, your address, and I just ask that you speak into the speaker.
Okay, so I have Richard, Jennifer, and Steve Harrison on the line. Those three are mine.
Okay.
Steve is a project manager for the project. Richard and Jennifer are with the civil group.
Okay.
So, and then I'm at 6,000 Clearwater in Hopkins,
Okay.
or Hopkins, Minnetonka.
Yep.
And we're proposing to tear down our store and rebuild it right down the road and get you a much better asset than what's there today.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat, I love the idea that you're going to put in a car wash because there just isn't a holiday car wash around.
Yeah, there's not. No.
Oh, I had to drive.
We know this, and that's why we're adding one.
I had to drive all the way down to the Fleet Farm to get my car
I
washed.
bet you did, yeah.
Okay, and we have reviewed your application, and as normal protocol for the record, could you, well, we just did that, brief about the application and plans. For the record, did you receive a copy of the report developed by the city's associate planner, Aaron Berg, on February 4th, 2026 regarding this application? And in this report, notes certain recommendations. You also note some conditions numbering 1 through 11. Do you understand these recommendations and conditions? And do you have any questions or comments about them at this time? Any of you? Sir?
I'll leave that question for Steve if he can come off mute and speak.
Hi, sorry. It's Steve Harrison. Let me share my video as well.
Did you hear his question?
Yes, I did. Yes, we did review. I don't have any concerns with them. I'd like to also get the recommendation of the civil group as well, just to make sure that they didn't see anything that was of concern in that. So Richard or Jennifer, could you also answer the question? Just so we cover all bases.
Hi there. I'll do some speaking. This is Jennifer Smith. I'm over here in Michigan. We did not have any comments. I did get a hold of Aaron. There was comment about the high-rise sign that we answered after this agenda got put together. He just had questions regarding whether we were increasing the size or making any sort of changes, but they're just planning on refacing it.
Okay.
So I think that's the only comment I had on the agenda.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we got all three people in there. I think this is one of those things that it's pretty straightforward. I only have one question. And this happened with Love's, actually across the street from Love's, they put in a truck wash. Told us they were going to put in a water reclamation system in it, and then said they weren't after everything was approved. Now, you say you're having a water reclamation system in there. Is there really going to be one, or is that just trying to make us happy?
Oh, yeah, we usually have one in there. Is that in our design, Jennifer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Correct. It accounts for about 20% reclamation, and we've used them on several sites, and different projects we've done before.
And they work all right for you and everything?
Yes, we haven't had any issues.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. At this point, I'm going to open the floor to my fellow commissioners. If you have any questions for them, please ask away.
I do not have any questions.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions.
Maybe a couple quickies. Wondering if you're anticipating any additional traffic or traffic change with the car wash in there. And the reason I ask is because when I use that store and then go to my house, I kind of go around that little the back way around. I was just wondering if there's any thought of any traffic changes or the necessity of any traffic changes there.
Yeah, we consider them almost the same customer, and I guess Forest Lake doesn't really have many car washes, so I guess maybe we'll pull more for a car wash, but it wouldn't be significant over to what we're planning on having there.
And I can let you know that the city engineer has reviewed all of plans, and I know one of the plan sets does show directional arrows of traffic flow, as well as our public works director, and there were no concerns about traffic or traffic flow based on the plan set that was offered to the city.
Okay.
That's all I had.
I have one more question. When are you going to start?
Construction?
Yeah.
When we get our building permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's the only questions I have. I'm looking for a recommendation at this time.
This is Kim. I would like to make a motion in favor of the holiday stores, new building and car wash.
So you're amending the conditional use permit to allow for the addition of a car wash?
Yes, we are.
That's the motion for tonight.
Yes.
Yes, we are amending the motion.
This is Mike, I'll second.
Carrie, aye.
Kim, I.
Mike, aye.
Andy, aye.
Rob and I. We're moving on to the city council.
Thank you. When is that?
When will that be?
I'm going to push it to the end of the month council meeting, so help me out, Mr. Mayor. 28th? 28th of February, I believe.
Is it a Saturday?
I think your email said the 26th, I believe. Is that a Thursday? Is that when they meet?
Yeah.
Wednesday, the 25th.
25th, yep.
25th. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, next up on our list is item 6B, Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Rezoning for 9613 145th Avenue Northeast. Okay, Aaron,
1 second.
if I could have you read the publication.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the City of Columbus Planning Commission on Wednesday, February 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as parties may be heard to consider a request to consider a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning ordinance amendment to change the designated land use of a 34.65 acre parcel located at 9613 145th Avenue Northeast from general business to light industrial. The hearing will be conducted in person and by interactive technology at the Columbus City Hall located at 16319 Kettle River Boulevard. Members of the public interested in attending in person, monitoring the meeting, or wanting more information should contact city offices or visit the website. The hearing shall be continued until all evidence and testimony has been received.
Hey, Aaron. I have a question for you now. We're going to discuss the rural residential commercial kennel ordinance, correct?
That'll be the next one.
That's right, comprehensive plan and rezoning.
Correct.
For those people, do we have them come up? Or is this just us?
For the rezoning and the comp plan amendment? You can certainly have the applicants come up and so that they'd be available to ask some questions. They are here.
Okay, if I could have you please step up, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
And again, I just ask that you speak into the microphone so that all the recordings work okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So this is basically rezoning a commercial type area into a light industrial area. And what was the purpose of that again for?
Well, basically what we'll start, we've been marketing the property for quite some time. And we've followed the zoning ordinances and whatnot that we currently have been under. We have continued to get some buyers that have come in and made offers and started the process on the property. Those uses were more light industrial. And it still applied to try to come into the city to try to bend those guidelines and still get a conditional use permit. And without success, because it's pretty cut and dried, and there were some areas that it strayed and didn't fit that box. So we went down that path for at least 4 years or so right now.
6.
Or 6 years, yep. And we received competitive offers, however, we just couldn't get them across the goal line. So then we backed up a little bit and said, what should this be? We've got, the community, the public, they're coming forward saying, this is what we think it should be. You look at the current zoning, and with general business, and I did some research and looked around to other communities, and I found one. If we look over to our neighbors into Hugo, the zoning and the approved uses for this parcel, the way it currently sits on Hornsby, matches up a lot with Frenchman Road. If you drive up and down, you'll see lots of these people, veterinarian clinics, quick trips, just all the different dermatology centers and things of that nature. That's 34,000 vehicles per day up and down that stretch, 4-lane, divided, et cetera. The population, the housing, and the business and the infrastructure is just not there along Hornsby to provide that kind of traffic, and nor do I think the city would want it that way. So then we dug into the comprehensive plan and just started matching out light industrial, which is just to the south of this parcel. Mm-hmm. And it seems to really fit. It fits with the current infrastructure. It fits with the traffic flow. It fits in proximity to the residential piece of Columbus. So the more we looked at it, the more we thought that light industrial really fits. It seems to fit with the area that it's in Columbus, as well as what the market perceives it to be. So that's where we got together around the holidays and said, hey, let's just go talk to the folks at the city and see if we can get this thing rezoned and find the buyer so that we can, get this land and site developed.
Excellent. At this point, we're not doing an open forum on this, are we? Open public? I don't see one. Or do we want to?
Yeah, you should do a public hearing.
Okay, if I could have you folks step back again while I invite anybody up who would like to speak on this matter. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on this matter tonight? Okay, we'll close the public forum and open the discussion to my fellow members. You see, have you had a chance to look it over? And did you see anything that you didn't like or liked, or?
I guess it would be just like what type of business would be coming in, because I don't want like that concrete plant.
Well, that's not light industrial, which is nice. Yeah, no, light industrial would mean like small printing plant.
Okay.
It's the little businesses, like he was saying, that are all along Hugo Drive there, or whatever. Yeah. All these nice small businesses. So that's what we're looking at here.
Okay.
Not necessarily stores, but they can do more things at these places than they can right now due to the way it's zoned.
Okay.
So the best description would be light manufacturing with some distribution of products made inside. Somebody's going to make widgets or
like a metal shop or something.
Something, yeah.
Okay.
They're cutting out, stamping out parts for BMX bicycles, and then they're shipping them off to who knows where.
Okay.
And to add, we're seeing our home offices in Stillwater area, and there's a company there, medical device companies. Minnesota's always had a huge presence of medical device companies. And they do a lot of pre-packaging, all these testing kits that medical facilities use. They're getting really good about just pre-packaging all those things. So like when you're in you go in for some sort of treatment, and they'll open up a box, do all the testing, send it all to the labs. It all is manufactured there. Like that one I'm saying is Diasorin. It's very big with that, where they manufacture things right there in one building, and then they have their office in another building and distribution in another one.
Okay.
Those are the type, that's the market that we're really trying to attack, something like that is what we're trying to attract for that site.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Mr. Chair, members of the commission, if I may, as this is a comprehensive plan amendment, this is just one of many steps in the process. And so you all need to make a recommendation on the rezoning and the comp plan amendment. The city council needs to concur. We need to then notify adjacent jurisdictions and or affected properties, give them 60 days to make comment. I have heard back from a couple of them already from sending out the public hearing notice, and there is no opposition at this point. I think I did include in your packet that the city of Forest Lake did reach out to me, and they're not in opposition to a change of this nature. My only concern about the comp plan amendment is that little tiny parcel on the corner that's now on an island. And it would be left commercial. Now, if we are told that also has to be rezoned, the city would then have to notify those parcel owners and let them know that their potential designation is going to change. However, I do know from conversations with regional groups that there is some desire to widen all the way from Lino up for a potential, or that what's been discussed as a technology corridor since 2019. If we were to pave all the way up there and then make a left-hand turn and then come up Hornsby, that might not be a bad spot for a commercial corner, however.
Yes.
So we'll see what the Met Council says once we get the 60-day comments back and then submit the application. So any approval tonight and or approval from the city council in a couple of weeks is all contingent the Met Council's blessing. So.
Okay. So you're looking for an approval or?
Looking for you guys to make a recommendation to A, allow the rezoning, and B, allow for the comp plan amendment, or recommend that the city council approve the comp plan amendment to change this parcel from its current designation to the requested designation of the applicant.
Okay. Got it written down?
And for next time, I can certainly script some motions so you have them in advance.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When it's that.
This is Kim. I would like to make a motion for consideration for city approval on the comp plan changes and
In the rezoning?
the rezoning.
This is Mike, second.
Carrie, aye.
Am I?
Mike, aye.
Andy, aye.
Robin, aye. Well, that's pretty easy. And the last thing we're going to discuss tonight is the Rural Residential Commercial Kennel Ordinance. This has been floating around for years. And basically, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. The purpose of this memorandum is to obtain Planning Commission feedback on whether the city should consider a future zoning code amendment to allow commercial kennels as a conditional use within a residential zoning district, specifically the rural residential. Commercial kennels are currently prohibited in residential districts under the city's current zoning code. No specific application has been submitted and no formal action is requested tonight. This item is intended solely as a policy level discussion to gauge the commission's interest and identify considerations prior to any drafting of potential code amendment processes. Staff has received an inquiry regarding the potential for a commercial kennel operation in a rural residential zone, however, have not received an application. Commercial kennels are generally considered high-intensity animal uses due to the potential impacts related to noise, traffic, waste management, and neighborhood incompatibility. Given the potential land use, noise, and incompatibility concerns associated with kennels, staff is seeking preliminary policy direction from the Planning Commission before taking any formal code amendment work. This approach allows the Planning Commission to discuss the concept broadly, identify concerns, and determine whether future exploration of this issue is warranted. Now, typically, general municipal land use practices, not unique only to Minnesota, restrict commercial kennels from residential zones. Research indicates that not every Minnesota city has the exact same language. The prevalent approach is to restrict commercial kennels from residential zones by either prohibiting them entirely, restricting them to only commercial, industrial, or agricultural zones, or allow them under conditional use. Under section 7A612 of the Columbus Zoning Code, commercial kennels are classified as high-intense animal use related to commercial. They are not listed as a permitted or conditional use within any residential district, however, are permitted in any of the commercial and industrial zoning districts as an interim or a conditional use based on defined zoning requirements. As such, the operation of a commercial kennel in a residential district is currently prohibited, as I said. Allowing such use in the future would require the adoption of a zoning text amendment to approved by the City Council following a Planning Commission recommendation. I've outlined the differences between an interim use permit and a conditional use permit. In Minnesota zoning practice, the difference between an interim use permit and a conditional use permit is fundamentally about duration, certainty, risk management, and not about land use intensity. The core distinctions of a conditional use permit are a use that is considered acceptable in principle with a zoning district on a permanent basis, provided conditions can continue to be met. A conditional use permit authorizes the land use that is listed in the zoning code as conditionally allowed and is considered compatible with the zoning district in principle when specific standards and conditions continue to be met. Approval of the CUP conveys a permanent land use entitlement that runs with the land rather than the individual operator and does not expire. Because of this vested nature, a CUP establishes long-term expectations for both property owners and the city, and revocation requires high evidentiary thresholds and clear documentation of non-compliances. CUPs are most appropriate for well-established uses with predictable and manageable impacts, where the city is comfortable allowing the use on a ongoing basis. The primary advantage of a CUP is regulatory certainty. It provides a stable, available framework while allowing the city to impose reasonable, enforceable conditions to mitigate these known impacts. Now, an interim use permit is a use that is not yet proven or not intended to be permanent, allowed temporarily, so the city can evaluate real-world impacts. An interim use permit authorizes land use on a temporary basis, allowing the city to evaluate before determining whether the use should be continued for a long term. While the use may be listed in the zoning code or allowed through a specific provision, it is not presumed appropriate on a permanent basis. And the approval does not create a vested right to the property. An IUP is issued for a definitive period of time and automatically expires unless renewed, allowing the city to reassess compliance, neighborhood impact, and overall compatibility at regular intervals. IUPs are most appropriate for uses with uncertain or potentially significant impacts, emerging land uses, or situations where neighborhood sensitivity is high. The primary advantage of an IUP is risk management. It provides flexibility and enforcement review point, and a clear exit strategy if the use proves to be incompatible or conditions cannot be met. Some may ask why a home occupation would not apply in this scenario. According to our zoning code, section 7A201, the definition of a home occupation is an occupation or a business or an activity intended to generate profit, full or part-time, and conducted within the dwelling unit or permitted accessory structure or both by a resident of the premises. Home occupations generally intend to allow low-impact accessory business activity that is clearly subordinate to its residential use and indistinguishable from the residence from an outward appearance. Although section 7A612 permits home occupations in rural residential zoning districts, a commercial kennel fails the home occupation test under Minnesota zoning law because it is not incidental or subordinate to the residential use and produces impacts that are outward perceptible beyond the dwelling. Minnesota courts have consistently held that a home occupation must remain clearly secondary to residential living and must not alter the residential character of the property or surrounding neighborhood. Uses that generate reoccurring noise, customer traffic, outdoor operational activity, or nuisance type impacts have been found inconsistent with home occupation standards, even when conducting within or on residential property. Commercial kennels inherently involve barking, animal turnover, waste management, outdoor exercise, and regular customer drop-off and pickup activity, all of which exceed low-impact internal and accessory natures contemplated by home occupation provisions. Minnesota appellate courts' decisions have upheld municipal determinations that activities producing detectable off-site impacts or requiring commercial level regulation are principal commercial uses rather than accessory residential uses, and therefore must be regulated through explicit zoning authorization such as a conditional or interim use permit rather than be treated as a home occupation. All of this information is presented for discussion purposes only. There is no motion or recommendation tonight, and no vote is requested or anticipated. If the Planning Commission expresses interest in further considerations of this topic, staff may return with a draft zoning code amendment options, performance standards, and public management strategies for a formal review. I did list a fairly lengthy list of policy considerations for us to certainly discuss. I want to bring those to your attention. And the first one is land use compatibility. Need to determine whether a commercial kennel can reasonably coexist with a surrounding residential use without altering the neighborhood character or undermining the intent of a residential zoning district. Page 66 if you're looking for those. Scale or intensity. Will a commercial kennel, will limitations such as caps on the number of animals, the number of employees, or square footage be necessary to ensure compatibility? Another consideration is noise impact. Will a commercial kennel, whether barking and or animal related noise, can be effectively mitigated through enforcement standards and or conditions? Location and criteria. Whether any allowance should be limited to certain residential zoning districts of the city, large lot parcels, or properties adjacent to agricultural or non-residential zoning. Precedent and zoning integrity. Whether allowing kennels as a conditional use would create pressure to allow additional kennels in other residential areas. Public health and safety. Considerations related to sanitation, waste disposal, animal containment, and emergency response. And permitting framework, whether a conditional use permit or an interim use permit would be most appropriate if the use were allowed in the future. And the enforcement capacity, something to consider, whether the city has adequate resources to monitor compliance and address complaints over time. I have generated some discussion questions I would like you all to consider and possibly provide me feedback so I know what direction to go. And the first question is there general support from Planning Commission to explore zoning code amendments to allow commercial kennels as a conditional or interim use in residential zoning districts?
I have experience in this, in that quarter mile down the road from me, there was a kennel. And even though they removed their barkers, I could still hear them barking a quarter of a mile down the road from me. So I know myself, I don't like the idea of allowing kennels in a residential area.
May I?
It's not a public forum.
Not a public
It's not open. We're just for discussion.
What
We're
you're
just
presenting to them is highly inaccurate. I understand the rules and regulations, what they are, but the situation that you're presenting to them is not the situation that we're going to talk about. So you're asking them to form an opinion by not getting all the facts.
Mr. Chair, this is.
Excuse me.
It's a matter of procedure. If you want to take public comment, that's completely up to you.
Okay.
I am simply asking questions that would lead us to a potential zoning code
I
amendment.
would agree with you, Aaron. Absolutely agree. Yeah, this is just simply, we're discussing to see if there's anything that's going to be done. We're not going to recommend anything today other than to have the city council maybe look at what we talked about. So I wouldn't be concerned too much about what we're discussing up here. We're just trying to get a general idea of where we are as a planning commission. We're a relatively new commission. So this is a discussion we have to have we'll have more like these on other issues.
I'm just trying to understand how you try to make a discussion when you don't have the facts. That's just my only comment.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It's currently prohibited. If the planning commission feels that it should continue to be prohibited, that's an easy discussion. That ends the discussion. By having a discussion, I can understand where the commission wants to go with this and present proper zoning changes, if there is the appetite for making any changes. The city's not obligated to make changes. This is a zoning code amendment request.
Yes. Okay. Next question. If we allow this, what do you guys think about lot sizes?
Well, I don't know if we necessarily got the entire feel for the first question, whether we should move on to number 2 or not.
Okay.
Maybe we want to step
Is there
back.
a general support amongst my colleagues to make an amendment or not, or let's have a discussion?
I think I'm kind of along the lines of you, Rob, and that depending, I guess, maybe on the size of a commercial kennel, there could be a lot of barking if that was within earshot of my house. As much as I love dogs, I've had neighbors that have had barking dogs, and it gets really old really quick.
Any comments?
I'm not in favor of it pretty much for the same reason. You know, I live in an area that's smaller and you can hear the dogs across the lake. And it's hard to have a barbecue outside or, you know.
Anything?
I would be in favor of, depending on circumstances such as lot size, number of dogs. What else do we have here? And maybe just try it, do an interim use permit, try it for 6 months or a year.
I would absolutely agree with the interim use. How long is a minimum interim use permit?
We can do a year.
A year?
I wouldn't
see something like that.
I wouldn't make it a permanent thing until we get more things.
I don't know that I would ever make it a permanent thing
Yeah.
myself.
I think obviously a lot of it depends on the circumstances and where you are in the city, because if you're on Broadway, you're not going to hear any dogs barking because you're all spread out and Carlos Avery's right there and a lot of road noise to begin with. But if you're in a newer development like me, you would obviously hear that. So I think it would have to be very dependent on where you are in the city.
I would agree a little bit of restriction would be very necessary if you're going to put this into, I mean, I know we live in the countryside and I know everybody's got big lots and everything like that and everybody wants to use their lots the way that they want to use them. Yeah. But the fact is we are still neighbors and we're close to each other. Yeah, I got 2.5 acres. My neighbor's got 2.5 acres, but when he tried to put a farm over there, it was like, no, that's not really
I was thinking 15, 20 acre minimum, big sizes so you can put the kennels way in back. You have trees to help drown out noise. You're not just some open field at 2.5 acres where you're just.
So that sounds more commercial than it does residential.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I would be at. And obviously cap the animals. I guess I look at it as
I think there would have to be a number of restrictions. You're going
you
to
have a cow or two mooing or some chickens crowing.
I think there has to be limitations on how many animals are there. I think there has to be some, I know I've seen it where they've put hedges to help keep the noise down. Some sort of fencing or something to keep the noise down, I think would also be another thing that we would have to consider in this as well.
So I look at this as from a hunting standpoint, I'm a hunter, I have a hunting dog. If the kennel can help train my dog hunting, I don't have to go up to Little Falls to travel 2 hours north. Someone's here do that. I guess I look at it in that perspective.
I would agree. I don't know that it warrants any sort of change, but I would definitely say that restrictions and limitations would need to be considered. And there's, as we all heard, the size and scope of everything, it would be entirely dependent, and a shorter term, as a trial, if something were to come of it anyway. This is only the first baby step, so.
I mean, would this be something considered like a variance, or just you would like?
No,
it would
no,
just have
it
to
would
be
have to be an
rezoned?
IUP.
Okay.
I think it would have to be an IUP, would it not, Aaron?
It would be either an interim use or a conditional use, and that would have to go through those processes if we decide that
I think
we
in
want to
general-
entertain that in the residential.
Right.
I think in general, at this point, I think we've all pretty much agreed that a CUP is out of the question. For us, anyway, at least for me. I don't know. I shouldn't speak for anybody else. I think it's out of the question.
I would agree. Without specific, as a whole, generally speaking, I'm not in favor of amending anything. If we had a specific request and we had more information that we could obviously make a more informed decision, I would certainly be open to having that conversation.
I'm intentionally trying to steer us away from a particular parcel or a particular situation. I don't want us to get into a legal battle over whether we created a zoning path for just one person.
Okay.
And if we then generally create an appropriate use that's applicable citywide, and it happens to fit the parameters that this one particular parcel is looking for, that's the intent of my conversation tonight, is how can we avoid and make this more generalized conversation until we reach that step.
So like basically like setting a limit of, or a minimum of like 20 acres. That would
You
be.
want to discuss stuff like that?
Yeah, well, so the next question then, if you're considering allowing, should it be limited to a minimum lot size?
I would say so.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm not asking you guys to define the lot
No,
size
but I
tonight.
do
That's
believe
research
that.
that we would do then on the
We
city's
need to
end.
have a minimum lot size, without a doubt.
Yes.
You've got to protect the neighbors.
And I'm assuming we're all in favor of that particular.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the next question for discussion. Are potential noise or nuisance impacts sufficiently controllable through conditions in a IUP or conditional use permit, and or then standards in a interim use permit? So from what you all may or may not know from code enforcement, do you believe the city has the capacity to control nuisance complaints through its enforcement mechanisms?
I'm not too familiar with how many people we have doing that, or how many complaints we get a year on noise complaints through animals, I guess. I mean, because typically if you have a noise complaint from a person, it onto it.
So I can let you know from the noise standards are controlled by the MPCA. And then we utilize the sheriff's office to do evaluations with noise meters from certain prescribed distances over a certain period of time, and do those readings exceed the standard.
Okay.
That's how we would go about enforcing the noise ordinance. As you know, we don't have a deputy on at all times. And so when the complaints come in, and this has been my experience from other jurisdictions, that even if there's a deputy on, and it's just a residential neighborhood with a neighbor's barking dog, most of the time, by the time the deputy arrives, the dog's been let back in, or they don't observe the noise, or these don't become priority calls for the sheriff's department.
Absolutely.
100%, yeah.
That's been my experience. Now, that isn't limited to just the sheriff's office. We do have a code enforcement officer who works daytime hours that we could equip and send out to investigate some of these things during the daytime hours.
I mean, I
He
think,
does do a lot of our follow-up on conditional use permits and interim use permits to determine whether conditions are being met or not.
I think with a kennel, most of the complaints would probably be during the day, as the dogs would be inside at night in their kennels. And if that building is soundproofed, which is very possible these days with good insulation and everything, you probably wouldn't hear much at night. It'd probably be a typical daytime.
I'm not certain that our compliance officer would have the time. I don't know, this is a hard question. Very hard question, Aaron. I mean, we're talking probably a minimal impact as far as numbers of kennels. So how much would he actually have to inspect? 1, 2 kennels? Not a big deal. If we start getting more, then we do have a compliance issue that we cannot control.
I think that could be regulated though with the lot size. So if we make it big with someone who has 15, 20 plus acres, that limits a lot of people, especially with a lot of the land they have is unbuildable to even build a kennel on. If I'm not correct, a lot of your 20-acre lots are 5, 6 acres buildable, and the rest is wetland that you can't build anything on.
Yep. We talked about conditions and limitations to protect the surrounding residents. We talked about a privacy fence around the dog areas, or even all the property for that matter, depending upon, depending on how big of an operation we're talking, fence the whole thing. I don't know. I think, though, it comes back to, is there general support for exploring zoning code change? I think that's where we're down to, aren't we, Aaron?
I got a couple more questions in there, but
Ask away.
and I think most of you have given your feeling on that. Would a conditional use permit or interim use permit framework be most preferable if we would entertain this?
It would be an
I'll say interim.
Yeah, interim.
Yeah, IUP.
We want to have the ability to shut them down if it's.
Yeah, we got to be able to give them a CUP and take a lot of control out, I
We
think.
do have some commercial zones that are allowed kennels by IUP, and we have some commercial zones that are allowed commercial kennels through conditional use permit. So the framework exists under both scenarios in the commercial zone. So it just depends on how we would like to approach the scenario. Now, as I said, conditional use permits run with the land. And so future resale would be dependent on a conditional use permit, interim use permit when the resident who has been issued the permit discontinues ownership. The interim use permit then goes away and that wouldn't be allowed on that property anymore. Whereas a conditional use permit would carry over. So that property could then be used as a commercial use by the next owner and the next owner and the next owner.
All the more reason.
So
That's the reason to make it an IUP.
that's the difference between the two under sort of this scenario.
Okay.
I have a question, Aaron. I saw you put in there commercial or agricultural zoning. What would be the difference in that?
I don't know that Columbus has any agricultural zones in the zoning code. That's just a general, I took general research from across the state of Minnesota. Okay. And so some cities still have agricultural zones. East Bethel, for instance, has agriculturally zoned properties still. And so there's some relaxed zoning code for properties that are zoned agriculture.
Oh, off topic here. What would be the people that have all the cornfields up? What would that be considered if they have?
They're most likely rural residentially zoned, being used and taxed agriculturally.
Okay.
And then the last discussion question I have is what conditions or limitations would be considered essential to protect surrounding residential properties?
Well, like I said earlier, yeah, privacy fencing, fencing in general of the area, either to the dog kennel area itself or the property, depending upon how big the property is. Obviously, if we're talking 15 acres, nobody's going to make you fence 15 acres. You know, I'm not going to do that. But I think those are the two big things.
Going on the fencing thing, we talked about like blending into your surroundings. You got to plant trees and stuff. Could that be part of it? Is you have to make it minimally?
It could be
minimally visible from the road.
Yeah, we have a lot of references in the zoning code to, I don't want to say the word improperly, opacity.
Yeah.
The ability to see it through screening, if you will. And so I think there's components we could pull out of other portions of the zoning code if screening was a definite consideration.
I think it's a definite that it has to be done.
Would like the number of dogs allowed, would that also be a limitation to protect the neighbors?
Absolutely.
Or a condition, yeah.
Or a
for sure.
condition?
So our current residential code for residential kennels is based on acreage.
Okay.
So there's also a framework there already existing. I believe it's 4 acres and under, you can have 4. 6 acres and under, you can have up to 6. I think that those are the standards. 10 acres or more, I think there's a number defined. Now, if that could be a little bit flexible in an interim use permit, in a conditional use permit, you may want to actually just draw the line and create a number. Makes it easier to enforce. Again, not as easy to enforce because somebody may pick up a dog in the morning, and by the time code enforcement gets there, now they're down to 19 and they were at 21 before. And so there's inherently all kinds of gray areas involved in allowing commercial operations in a residential zone, not even just kennel based, just commercial functions in general in a residential zone. Well, some I've seen are hours of operation, traffic control, parking lots. Those are all also considerations that could be put into permitting.
Yeah.
I've seen cabinet shops in residential neighborhoods that they restrict hours of routering and sawing and number of customers that can come and go and the time of day that they can start. I mean, as creative as you want to be, or as restrictive as you want to be, those conditions could be named. And so that's why I was asking, are there specific things that are just, if this isn't in there, this is a no starter kind of thing?
Well, I think the fencing is a no fencing that is a no starter.
Bringing that up, we're not looking at like a muddy paws doggy daycare here. We're looking like a kennel type.
No, because that's a business.
Okay.
That's not a home business or a residential business.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're not talking Muddy Paws or Green Mountain or whatever that great big place is. We're not talking anything like that. Have you ever seen Nandu kennels?
Yeah, I drive by it all the time.
Okay. That would be, I would assume, something similar? Nandu?
So every application is going to be different, right?
Yeah.
So
But I'm saying it's
the operator,
similar to that.
It's all hypothetical, correct?
it is all very hypothetical under this discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
I want to keep it very general.
Well, I'm just trying to get a general,
I mean, that's the only one I've seen
that's the only
here.
one I've seen in a residential area, so.
The other thing I would, part of an IUP would be maybe the consideration from the neighbors for the use as well, if that's a possibility.
So there'd be a public hearing. The neighbors would all be sent a notice that there is a public hearing. They'd have an opportunity to speak to the application. Now, whether the decision then in the recommendation from the Planning Commission adds conditions because of neighborhood concerns, that's the opportunity to address how those are handled.
I know we sent out a survey for that animal thing we did, 2 months ago, 3 months
Yes.
ago? I mean, did people respond to that? I mean,
We do have responses. With the
similar thing to that as well?
with the departure of your assistant planner and the absence of the city administrator, I've been doing multiple tasks, and so looking at survey results are not high priority at this point, but they are still coming in.
People have responded.
There are responses.
Is this something you could survey out to the city again type of thing?
We certainly could do that.
Their general response to it?
I think that would be a really
That would be a
really
good thing.
prudent thing to do, to see what the residents think about a general, simple question.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other considerations?
I don't got anything at this point. I mean,
I don't think so.
trying to keep it in generalities, and I think we've done a pretty good job of wrangling things together.
Okay. All right. I will take all this into consideration. We can do a survey. And certainly, I think that has some value, although with over 4,000 residents, you get 86 responses. I don't know how scientifically that those results come, but we can certainly use that feedback then in addition to what you guys have, and bring that back and see if we want to move forward with a amendment to the zoning code to look at this. So I appreciate that feedback.
Okay?
I mean, and maybe if you put in the survey like a minimum lot size or something they could write in, or
Yeah, I can do a survey similar with similar questions so that we can hone in on what may or may not be acceptable. But, and I don't know if all of us have had the opportunity to have this conversation. I was the Planning Commission chair for 6 years in another city. And I serve on the city council, so I look at planning commissioners as a community litmus test. And your opinion as commission members and representatives of the community has some value. And I think as a council member and as the council members in the back of the room, take your recommendation also as a representative feeling of the community. So. Mr. Chair, I see someone in the audience has their hand up. Again, your floor, you can entertain it if you want or no.
Well, it's not really an open discussion, but you know what? I'll take a question.
Well, I would ask your permission to talk. And probably just keep it calm, but some of this was generated, if I can't continue.
Well,
It's important, believe me. I don't want to see you guys waste your money. Just give 5 minutes.
I'm gonna say no, because it's not open
This
forum.
should be a democracy, and this is not a democracy.
This is a
Spend money on
commission
things, and
meeting.
you can shut me down if you want. You're going to spend money on all this stuff.
I want to spend any money.
Negative light. This is Nandul Kennels. This is a guy who's been in the community for 50 years.
I agree.
And he's had a permit forever. Now, all of a sudden, the city's telling him, well, you can't sell your property and this can't be a kennel anymore. It's wrong.
You can reapply. New owners can reapply for a kennel license. That's the way IUPs work.
And I would really like to tell our story, and I guess we're going to have to tell it in a different way. So,
I'm afraid so.
That's where this came from. They've got 80 acres. Been there for 50 years, long before the houses were there.
We're done. Okay. Planners report. I have got nothing, I should say planning commissioners report is our next item on the agenda. I do not have anything at this time. Corey, you have anything that you would like to bring up at this time?
no.
I have nothing.
Nope, nothing.
Nothing.
Our liaison, is there anything you would like us to say or do for you?
This is Jenny. So can I just note for the residents that are here, I know you are walking out, but the Nandu Kennels family, I just wanted to note that the clarification for tonight was to have more of a general conversation and not have it specific to one business. And that's where I think the confusion is maybe coming in. So we can maybe have that discussion outside of the city, but thank you for having that discussion.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, this is Kim. I'd like to make a motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn the meeting.
This is Mike, I second.
Harry, aye.
You gotta vote, Kim.
Kim, I.
Mike, aye.
Andy, aye.
Rob and I. This meeting is adjourned. It is 2 minutes to 7.